I ask, why are you here? And they say, well, I broke up, I just got a divorce. And I ask, what happened? How do you feel about it? And what is present for you right now? Is I don't know who I am anymore. I was the wife of. I even have the surname of my husband. You know that level of identity that you were the wife of, plus you have the surname of your husband, and you have this house, and everything suddenly, if you get divorced, you need to move out from the house, there's some issues with your child, you're not the wife of him anymore. Collapse of identity. And I'm glad, I'm applaud that, because this is like, okay, finally, I hear you asking the question, who the hell am I? And what I'm gonna do here with this life.
Welcome to the Power Plant Body podcast. My name is Taylor, and this show is focused on self-development. I've found in my own life, as well as the lives of my clients that I've worked with, that it's human nature to focus on goals in one area of life, or maybe two areas of your life if you're lucky, to the detriment of the other areas of your life. For this reason, there's a tool that I use with my clients called the Goal Wheel that is specifically designed to shed light on how you might be preventing yourself from living the fullest life possible. In a nutshell, the goal wheel is a circle drawn on a piece of paper that's being divided into 8 quadrants. The 8 quadrants are family and friends, romance, fun and recreation, health and fitness, finances, personal growth and spirituality, career, and physical environment. Basically, you give yourself a score between 1 and 10 for each of these areas of your life, and that allows you to see where you're excelling and putting your attention. But it also shows you the areas of your life that you're currently neglecting. The areas of life that we neglect are often the areas that we need to work on the most. And that's exactly why I started this podcast, to share insights from teachers who are experts in one or more of these areas of the goal wheel. Each interview is meant to inspire you to take action in one of those areas so that you can live a more fulfilled and balanced life. To get your hands on a free copy of the Goal Wheel PDF so that you can use it to create meaningful goals and take steps to achieve them, head over to powerplantbody.com/free-tools. You'll find a bunch of other free tools and resources there as well. Sebastian Valensi is a modern-day Renaissance man, having a deep knowledge of spirituality, martial arts, yoga, mindfulness, personal development. Really, the list goes on. I found my conversation incredibly insightful, as Sebastian is able to take complex ideas from ancient spiritual teachings and convey them in a way that is intuitively understandable to me. Sebastian has a wonderful backstory that perfectly follows a hero's journey. Now, I won't spoil it for you, but it really reminded me of the wonderful book called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, as Sebastian's return was full circle. He is now sharing his wonderful gifts of insight into what makes us human, the meaningful purpose that we all strive to find, and the challenges that we face as we go in search to find it. Sebastian is a wealth of knowledge and a fantastic personal development coach, and he has an incredibly insightful free 3-day program called Tantric Wisdom for Modern Times that I highly recommend that you go check out after our interview. You can get it for free by going to heartoftantra.com. That's HEARTOFTANTRA.com. I really enjoyed my conversation with Sebastian, and I know that you will too. So without any further delay, I bring you my conversation with Sebastian Valensi. Well, Sebastian, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on my podcast and sharing your wealth of knowledge with me and the listeners. Before we get started, maybe I just invite you to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Taylor, for inviting me, for having me here, and introducing myself. I always struggle with that one. This is one of probably the most difficult ones for me. Well, my name is Sebastian. I'm from Chile. I born in Patagonia and grew up in a little town in the very south of South America. And I have been always drawn to spirituality. There's a big influence from my dad. He's a Tai Chi and Qigong teacher. He had been training in China with like great Qigong masters, and there always had been this environment in my house, since I was a kid, of like Chinese thing. My name, it was written in Chinese, huge in the wall. Martial arts also, he initiated me into martial arts, and in a very spiritual way as well, like based on principles and traditional martial arts and so on. Then somehow, when I was a teenager, when that time happened, that everything that your dad say is crap, and you want to go against it. Then I forget about it. We were doing like Reiki sessions sometimes, stuff like that. It was like very, very beautiful environment in that sense. And then it was like, no, it's like friends, party, alcohol, drugs, whatever, and that, shut up, this doesn't work, or this is fluffy. And then I went into the corporate world, and then I started getting sick, and I am telling this little bit of the story instead of telling what I do and what are my credentials and what I'm teaching, so everything makes more sense, I feel. And then I got sick, physically, mentally, emotionally. It was like a very, very hard time in my life, with anxiety, with treatment for depression, pills, psychotherapy, psychiatric, and I had even kidney stone from nowhere coming, and strong pain in my body, a digestive disorder, a bunch of stuff that started coming in a matter of like 2 or 3 years. And I was somehow forced to come back to ancient teachings, of energetic teachings, of teachings of the mind, of spiritual teachings that are beyond what the doctor could tell you, because I couldn't find answers on the mainstream currents of modern Western medicine of things that were going on. I saw a pattern. There is something going on here that is out of balance for me as a whole. And modern Western medicine, which I love it, by the way, I think it's very powerful, especially with the technological advancement. At some point I was like, okay, there is something that this is not providing me. And I came back, to, not literally to my dad, but the foundation that my dad somehow gave me when I was a kid. And I started reading more. I started diving deeper into Ayurveda, into yoga, into meditation. And I started traveling. I ended up in India, where I make my first yoga teacher training. And I lived there for a few months, looking for healing, looking for meaning, which is connected with healing. And then life changed completely, and I healed many things that were very present and relevant in that moment. Of course, this path is a never-ending path, and not only heal, I found something, like I found a strong sense of meaning for my life. This is what yogis call it, Dharma. And since then I still learn and take courses and train, but I start teaching and offering other people what transformed me, and this is what I do nowadays. I run yoga teacher trainings, I run tantra retreats, which is one of the main things. I'm having a virtual school that's called the Modern Mystic School. I'm running 3 months immersions on tantra for people who want to go deeper into like a powerful philosophy that they can incorporate in their daily life, and they can find themselves, basically. And this is what I'm doing right now, not much of a choice, but it was a very organic, natural process, full of opportunities that I got, in this hero's journey of my life that makes me do what I'm doing right now.
That's a really amazing journey to go on, from Patagonia, and being brought up in a household where mindfulness, meditation, martial arts, Reiki, you mentioned Reiki.
Yeah.
Like these are not things that are common in, childhood upbringings, to then going into, the typical child upbringing of, partying and drugs and alcohol and all that kind of stuff. And you mentioned like you looked at your father when you were younger, as you looked up to him, and he imparted his knowledge and shared these amazing things with you. And then you get to adolescence and you start to say, I don't agree with this guy. You push against the father.
Yeah.
You try to find the boundaries and find your own identity. And on this hero's journey, you go and learn more about yourself. In India, you take yoga and mindfulness. You mentioned Dharma, purpose. You found your purpose in India going through that teaching. What was the Dharma that you came away with?
Thank you for bringing that question. The concept of Dharma is a very relevant concept for me and has been present for a while. I think there are different ways to understand Dharma. Dharma is translated in Sanskrit as the law or the cosmic law. It's basically this underlying intelligence. And there is a type of Dharma which doesn't change, which is the underlying intelligence of everything, what makes the sun shining and the planets moving, right? But at the same time, we have a personal Dharma. And if we come back to where the word initiate in the Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata teachings, they're saying the Dharma is basically come back to your true nature, to your true self. They call it the Atman, your soul, you know? And if we bring this into a third layer that I like to see Dharma, is like, okay, how can I bring this into practicality in this world, in this realm, you know? And I think it's important to understand these three levels, you know, of Dharma, like a more cosmic Dharma, a more spiritual Dharma, which is basically finding yourself, and a more practical Dharma that's something that is relevant and alive right now, you know? So it's important to understand that. And the third one is a Dharma that is fluid, that is changed, and that can potentially be multiple Dharmas, because you can be a mother, that could be your Dharma, or you could be like somebody who is a mother and at the same time a business owner, you know, and there's two strong Dharmas that is important to be aware, so you can align your intentions with your actions, you know, so you can live coherently. And that's super important advice to build a happy life, to live with that coherence in terms of clarity in your intentions and the actions that you are taking, right? So in India, regarding your question specifically, it was so evident that I need to share all of this. The first teacher training program that I took in Rishikesh, I was mind blown by the whole Indian culture. I felt like I had some kind of past life there, because it was like everything resonates so much. And it's funny because India is an interesting place that when I arrived to Rishikesh, everything was dirty. It was kind of unsafe. I got sick, you know, I get like digestive issues. That is some kind of a rule. If you go to India, it's like the first week you're going to get some kind of diarrhea or something. And yeah, a lot of struggles, a lot of challenge, but at the same time, I was in total bliss, you know, a bliss that I never experienced before. Because I was connecting with a culture that holds a timeless wisdom, very, very powerful. And when I finished my teacher training that I was not planning to teach, I said, I'm going to do a yoga teacher training for me to learn and go deeper into yoga. Something that I also recommend to people who ask me, should I do a teacher training or not? Yeah, if it's for you, you teach yourself, you know? But when I finished, this is Taylor, something that what makes teachers, what make therapists, what make coaches, not certification at all, but a deep call of an overwhelming desire of sharing something that absolutely transforms your life. You cannot make blind side to that, you know, that doesn't exist. It's such a powerful call, and it's an effortless, an organic call. It's like you have this precious stone that you find that have the power to change your life. Very rarely people will keep it in their pocket. People will share it with their family and friends first, right? And that's Dharma, because it's a call. And it's a call that feels aligned with your true nature, and is a way of expressing fearlessly who you are in this life for what you have been shown and what you have been, you know, called. And that was my Dharma. I need to share yoga philosophy, yoga asana, pranayama, mantra, mudra, bandha, all of these techniques, ancient techniques that can literally change people's life. And somehow that's still my Dharma. Of course, Dharma is fluid, that change, and it's multi-level or multi-dimensional, but still have this overwhelming need of, not overwhelming in a bad sense, but overwhelming need of like a deep, strong desire of share with people something that has been there for millennia, that was discovered for yogis in the ancient, you know, times of they call it the Satya Yuga, the era of gold, the era of truth. For these times, especially for these times, which are quite chaotic, full of confusion, full of a lot of fear, uncertainty, anxiety, depression, how we can bring the old back in a practical way. And this is a call for me. And this is what I'm doing every day, nonstop, to myself, to my loved ones, and for whoever feel the call as well.
Yeah, I love that. What I get from that is like a translator, right? A translator. You mentioned Eastern philosophy, Eastern religion, having all of this wisdom locked in it for millennia and bringing it to you mentioned the modern mystic, which I love, because it seems like we're in a place right now where maybe people aren't totally receptive to it, but they're becoming more receptive of it. And I believe it's because of this marriage between science and religion, ancient religion, right? We're starting to understand that there's more to this whole universe that we're experiencing than just, tables and chairs. There's an underlying vibration to it. There's an underlying wholeness to it. And like what I get from you is that you're helping to facilitate that translation of these deeper truths to people who have grown up in a modern setting, with the modern conveniences and misunderstandings of maybe what else is going on behind the curtain.
100%. Yeah. This is, I have been told that once, I remember, and I'm receiving that. I'm taking that. Going deep into a commentary of a Swami of the Bhagavad Gita, dense teachings, now I'm reading another book that's called Yoga, Immortality and Freedoms from this Mr. Eliade, which is basically a spiritual seeker, scholar-like, very deep into the philosophical concept of the ancient tradition. And it's dense, it's very dense, but I loved it. And what I love the most, not study the dense part, but as you said, how can I explain this to my auntie? How can I explain this to my auntie who never heard about Dharma or even yoga? How I can chew this. Let me chew it, and digest it for you, so I can explain. I can translate that. I feel very, very comfortable with that, and this is what the programs that have been running on the teacher trainings and even the concept of the modern mystic is all about. Is about bringing that into practicality. I don't know how many people really want to go deep into the structure itself, the scriptures itself, memorize them, and living as an ascetic in the top of the mountain. People having social media, and they want the social media because it's helping to grow their business. They want to build wealth. They want to have relationships. They want to have, lovers, and they want to travel the world and live in this way. And all are fear pursuits, in this modern world. Why not? Make yourself comfortable enough also so you have space for what is relevant and what is and we have the power to create the life, whatever life that we want, if there's like the right intention, the right why behind, and under that lifestyle, how we can bring in spirituality. Interestingly enough, Tantra, by the year of the 500 after of the Common Era, Tantra born as a system, as a spiritual system, as a spiritual technology for householders. That was a huge revolution by that time on the Indian times, If you're spiritual, at that time, if you want to have a spiritual practice, you become an ascetic and you go to the temple, to the monastery, you renounce life. Mm-hmm. Tantra was like, you don't need to renounce life because life is sacred, life is divine. Stay here as a householder, with a family, with a business, dealing with money, dealing with relationship, but still find liberation in the world instead of from the world. Or instead as a future after death idea that you either go to hell or paradise or kingdom of heaven, and we need to move away from this mundane, as my priest told me when I was a kid, it's like moving away from this dirty, mundane, sinful realm towards kingdom of heaven, which is ultimate peace and perfection. And Tantra is saying, no, this is divine and kingdom of heaven is here right now. Can you access it? And you are responsible to access it. So translating all of that, applying to modern time, which I think is the most relevant thing right now, especially with this whole COVID situation, borders being closed, a whole change in the financial system, cryptocurrency, wow, changes, crisis, changes, and new things, and challenges, and confusion, and wow, how we can bring that back and translate that tantric wisdom, that ancient wisdom into a modern life is more relevant than any time. And as I said before, talking about Dharma, I personally feel that call to contribute to that process in a more easeful way, right?
Yeah, I love that. the ascetics, as you said, they go up to the mountaintop and they sit in a monastery and they renounce the world around them. And the Tantra concept of understanding the purpose behind that, but still bringing yourself to the world, not just going in and renouncing everything, but bringing yourself to the world, and experiencing the world. I love this concept of the possibility that we are all, different manifestations of the one God experiencing itself. That's been a common theme coming up lately. And that idea of, moving away from the aesthetic and coming back into this tantric, way of living where you're a co-creator, you're looking for that deeper understanding, you're looking for that deeper wisdom, but understanding that you're also a part of the process. You're a cog in this machine. Recently, I'd say just in the last few months, when I was younger, I went to church and whatnot when I was younger, but about 15, 16, I kind of just said, well, religion is nonsense, basically became an atheist. And only recently, last few months, verses from the Bible have been coming into my life and for just through different mediums, and I'm still not, I'm by no means Christian, but I'm also, I realize that there's something else going on and open to it. And two verses that have, or two quotes or what have you, that have come back to me that are so in alignment with what you just mentioned are, the kingdom of heaven is within you, which, with this idea that we have to live here in such a way so that we can ascend and live in a perfect heaven sometime in the future. The kingdom of heaven is within you and it's here right now. And the second one that I love is, I and my Father are one, but my Father is greater than I. Which is exactly the same thing as what so many Eastern philosophies and Eastern religions speak about as well. So I just love this marriage of these different ancient religions and now new science that's showing the underpinnings of maybe what we call reality.
Yeah, there's somehow some things merging. There's definitely, you can perceive this, and individually in the collective, some change in the way that we are living life and the way that we are with technology and all these changes, the crisis that brings change. And somehow there's some people who can be pessimistic in this whole change. People say like we're in Kali Yuga from the Hindu perspective, that we're in the dark era. And there is a debate actually in terms of which year we are. We're definitely in the Kali Yuga, which what Vedic sages were saying that is the era of darkness. Everything is cyclical in this realm. Even Wall Street. Even the S&P 500. Everything is cyclical, because if you see even the stock market, the stock market represents the collective consciousness. What's going on. If everyone wants to buy and everyone there is an expectations of something, it changes the price. Same in the human cycles, very evident in females' bodies. That have the whole menstruation ovulation process. That's why the female body is a very evident manifestation, embodiment of the cycles of nature and the Shakti, the dimension where we live. That what tantric we're honoring the goddesses as well. But in that cycle, there's a whole debate of, okay, we're definitely in the dark era. Now we are about to reach top bottom, or we are coming out from it. There is I have been discussing with a few Vedic philosopher friends about this. And there's interesting two perspectives. One is them is like, with this whole world wars and all of this time, we were like really getting in the lowest time of the human era, of the human consciousness. Everyone were like close in terms of there was no expansion of consciousness, but the opposite. And now with COVID, since you're going like, we're somehow coming out, there's like a more optimistic vision. And from the other side, some people say like, no, we're about to reach the bottom with the whole technology and rovers and AE, and we're gonna, I don't know, we're all gonna die, or we're gonna move to a more lower dimension. Who knows? Who knows? I don't know. I personally like to live maybe in a more optimistic way for what I see and what I what I observe, and what's going on in myself and in the collective, in terms of what you mentioned, this merging science, religion, philosophies, and so on. If you look, for example, back, Taylor, about like ancient philosophers, the ancient philosophers in Greece and especially in ancient Western philosophers, they were like philosophers, scientists, mathematicians, healers, and scientists. They were all combined. They were like spiritual people who mastered the art of mathematics at the same time. All these ancient Greeks, amazing people that we look up to. If we look back to even Leonardo da Vinci, he was an artist, but he was a genius, scientific, and it was very spiritual as well. Even Albert Einstein, his whole approach is very, he talk about, he go beyond just matter. He go into the metaphysics, So I think historically, when we go into a space of separation and into a more, we start becoming more blind of what, and disconnected with reality itself. A manifestation of it is we separate and we label, Then we go too much in the mind and too little with reality. The function of the mind is about separating and labeling. It's just a function. It's just a little thing here we have to to deal better with things. It's like, let's plan our meeting. Okay, on Friday, at this time we need our brain at 11:11, right? So we need to plan. We need our brain in that sense, as the organ to some structure, labeling, separation. You are there, I'm me. We call each other names. That's the ego, that false sense of separation. More that happen, we tend to separate things, and science becomes there, and spirituality becomes so far away, and that's a very evident manifestation of we are losing touch with reality.
Yeah, definitely.
But more we start merging things, especially when quantum physics start making sense, and the atoms, the Buddhists, the year 500 before the Common Era, the Buddhists were talking about Kelapas. They were meditating in a subatom, an energetic unit they were calling, that is in constant motion and vibration. They didn't even know about atoms by that time, and now everything is like, Buddhists were right. They have this perception and intimacy of reality, and things were connected, and they were like observing the cosmos, observing the human body, and things make sense. They were understanding, a deep sense of understanding, not because they read the Harvard research on Google Scholar. This is what everyone knows is based in science. Show me the study on Google Scholar. So what about the laboratory of the body that the yogis, the Buddhists, the tantrics has been experimenting already for more than 4,000 years, and now things are merging, and I like to see that, I like to see that the same concept of God, is like, YouTube, the priest and the scientific debate of if God exists or not, and they're like talking about like different things under their own context and their own concept of God, but ultimately I see points in between, and personally, and this is the call for people who are listening, when you see such a divided and labeled reality, an invitation to step back and observe and understand. You either need to be Democrat or Republican, and if you're not any of them, you are kind of lost, or you're kind of fucked, or you're pro-vaccines, or you're gonna take the vaccine for the COVID. People asking me, it's like, I see this, Seba, what you gonna do? I'm interested on your. I say, I don't know. I am literally laying back and observing and listening people, or if somebody else come to me and say, I follow the paleo diet. Are you vegan? Yeah, I'm a vegan. Let's, it's like we are separated and let's fight for it. It's like, that makes no sense. What I want to hear is like, why do you think it's important for you to eat meat? I will ask a paleo, and I choose. More aware you are, actually, this is what the spirituality gives you, awareness, period. And more aware you are, more power you have of choice. That's freedom. That's ultimate freedom. Totally. And then when I'm presented to a challenging situation of paleo people who want to discuss against me or somebody who want to discuss about whatever, I want to ask back questions to try to understand. Most of the time, we're going to agree in many points.
Yeah,
That merging thing that you're mentioning, that I'm mentioning with this example, it is spirituality embodied. It is spirituality applied. It is how we are expanding our consciousness right now. Not exactly with the amount of hours you're meditating. Maybe that's going to help. But how you're choosing with your level of awareness every day with what you're being presented to choose to connect, to understand, to feel what the other person is feeling, to understand other people's arguments, especially when you are a Democrat, quotes, and the other one is a Republican, when you are pro-vaccine and the other one is anti-vax. Can we sit down and talk? Can I find the points in common? Can we try to understand each other and feel each other in a matter in the body, in the feelings, in the emotions? This is what is gonna wake up humanity, I feel, and the empowering thing about this is start from us, start from Taylor after finishing this call and going to buy something in the health shop. How you gonna interact with this person, how you gonna interact with your partner, how you gonna interact when your mom is telling you that through the phone and say, okay, what you gonna choose.
Yeah, I love that. The connection you make with other people. There's a quote that comes up for me especially when you talk about, paleo or vegan or Republican or Democrat, these labels that we give ourselves is seek first to understand before seeking to be understood. And when I think about people who put a label on themselves, I'm Republican or I'm Democrat, they're not focusing on what they are. They're focusing on what they identify as, who they truly are. They're focusing on what they identify as. And I think, my whole idea behind this is, you mentioned Dharma at the start of this. You found your Dharma when you went to India. You did your yoga teacher training. I feel like a lot of this separation that we feel from one another, the identity politics or, the labeling that we give ourselves and other people, isn't because we are actually these labels that we're giving ourselves. These are just ways of compartmentalizing the world around us. As you mentioned, is only one way to view a larger whole. What we're really doing is we're trying desperately to carve out an identity for ourselves, when what we're truly seeking, I believe, is something like what you found, which is your Dharma. How do I reciprocate with the world around me, give to the world my true gift, whatever that is, so that I can receive back the relationships, the understanding, the experiences that that I'll get from that, from people that I'm interacting with. That's just my understanding of why we're faced with these identity politics that we are. With you are helping people explore this side of themselves, right? Specifically you help people understand the masculine and feminine energies and how Tantra can start to fit into an everyday person's life, right? The getting closer to a spiritual understanding of the world that they're living in. How does that typically look for you when someone comes to you? What stage of life are they in? What questions do they have? And what are they seeking?
Well, that's really depends on the person. Normally, as you asking me this question, it came to my mind, when we make these circles on the yoga teacher trainings that I was teaching in Bali, and I was like holding a space for like every month for a group of like 30 people. For some reason, like mainly women, there always was a few guys, but this is an interesting topic also, why this is happening. But many people, when we ask, why are you here? Why you travel from Europe, from Australia, from the United States to this little tiny island in Bali for a month with the most crappy Wi-Fi ever, to sit down with a bunch of group people that you don't know, with teachers you don't know, to dive deep into something for a month. What is that something? What are you expecting, And And that's probably maybe the same reason now we cannot do that. Mainly, things are changing because of the actual pandemic situation, but it's one of the similar reasons that people have been joining my last program we have been running virtually. One of the main reasons is many people are feeling lost and feeling confused. There is an intuitive, deep inner call, as cheesy as it sounds, is freaking real. Something is wrong here. The same call that I felt when I was like maybe, I don't know, 21, 22, which was for years. I was feeling this kind of, it looks like I'm doing everything good, right? My family and society told me to get good scores, good marks to get into uni. Okay, I'm gonna do it. I did it. I got into uni. Now, can I celebrate? Wait. Good, get marks and good scores and good connection with the people so you can get a good job after that. And well-paid job, mainly. That's terrible, because we are like the main, goal is like getting a job that you get good payments, nothing make... It's Dharma, which is the opposite of Dharma. And then, okay, I did it. And then I came out to the work space and I was like, what the hell I am doing here? So I did all of this for this, and it's happened at the level of relationships as well. I have a few students who say like, I ask, why are you here? And they say, well, I broke up, I just got a divorce. And I ask, what happened? How do you feel about it? And what is present for you right now? Is I don't know who I am anymore. I was the wife of. I even got his surname. In Chile, you don't get the surname of your husband when you get married. But no, in Chile, it was new for me. I was like, I even have the surname of my husband. That level of identity that you were the wife of, plus you have the surname of your husband, and you have this house and everything. Suddenly, if you get divorced, you need to move out from the house. There's some issues with your child. You're not the wife of him anymore. Collapse of identity. And I'm glad, I'm applaud that, because this is like, okay, finally I hear you asking the question, who the hell am I and what I'm going to do here with this life? Well, sadly you needed to get into some like, painful conflict, of a breakup or a physical issue or a strong anxiety or stuff like that. Sadly, normally the universe, I feel, and this is my axiom, I start from this foundation that give you constant feedback. If you don't listen, well, then the message is going to be louder, of course, if you knock the door and nobody open, you're going to knock louder. And this is why people come to me normally, because of the same reason that I come to my teachers, I guessing, and this is like, this is the pattern, the fractal, explanation of how people start waking up, I'm guessing, out of crisis. As Albert Einstein says, crisis is the best thing that can happen to human being, because you're forced to this, you're invited to this, you're pushed to this, to ask that questions. And then it's beautiful. Start asking, who am I and what I'm going to do with my life. It's such a beautiful space to be, I feel, Finally, we're going to start thinking. Finally, we're going to start to nurturing spaces to develop introspection, to develop self-examination through certain practices, through certain philosophies. And it's such a perfect ground. It's way perfect ground than somebody telling you, make this quiz, or talk to this person that can help you to find what is the career that you need to study, because that's going to show what you're going to do for the rest of your life. No, it's way better. You go into crisis and then in the middle of the crisis, you say, who the hell I am? There has been spiritual philosophies like Vedanta, the teachings of Ramana Maharishi, who have been based on that question, who am I? And ultimately that's the spiritual Dharma, to come back to yourself. And ultimately that's what meditation does. In Tantra, in Taoism, the shamanic way, in yoga, in the Patanjali Sutras, meditation as a way of sit down with yourself and start explore within what is there. And just from that space, it's just an upright path, There's nothing else. What question comes after that? There's nothing else potentially that you can lose if you're in a deep state of crisis. Okay, I'm gonna refigure out. And people say, I don't know. I'm gonna do a teacher training. I'm gonna join this tantra course. And it's happened that through the philosophies and the wisdom and through certain practice, but also through the process of being mentored and guided by somebody and supported by a group of individuals, this is a nourishing environment for the flower naturally to thrive and grow. You don't force, when you have a garden, you don't force a plant or a flower to grow. You just worry about the environment, the right soil, the right sun, the right water, and this is what naturally happens. Now, when you're wounded, if you hurt yourself, in the gym, if you hurt yourself in your heart, through a relationship, it's the same application, It's like healing, how to heal myself. You're not literally healing that thing, but you're nurturing the environment so the healing can happen as a natural, effortless process, and then that's a question that not much people asking. That's the next question is like, okay, what can I do consciously to nourishing my environment that involves guidance, that involves philosophy, that involves support and community, that involves the right understanding. I always say that the three pillars, the right understanding, the right practice, and the right support or community. How I can consciously invest my time, my money, my energy on that, so my healing process and my awakening process of human being happens effortless and naturally.
Getting out of your own way. You mentioned, people often come to you in a point of crisis. They're either losing their identity through a divorce, or in your case, like you go to school and then you get out and you get into the corporate world and you realize, oh my goodness, this is not what I expected it to be. This is not as fulfilling. That happened to me, actually. I got into the corporate world and I actually started earning the amount of money that I thought I needed to be earning in order to be happy. And I realized, I was probably more miserable than ever, But the thing that comes up when I hear you say that is this theme that is found in every story, in every teaching, across all theologies, across all ancient civilizations. And, it was summed up in the hero's journey by this idea of a birth, death, and rebirth, or birth, death, and resurrection. And you can't have the resurrection, you can't have the rebirth without the death, without putting things to rest, to start fresh, or start from a place of new beginning. And in speaking with you, you went through that process yourself. There was this moment where you got to the point where you essentially had to die to your trajectory, your understanding of the world, to be reborn into what you have now, which is your spiritual Dharma. What was that process like for you, and how do you see that process come up in the people that you work with?
Well, for me, that process was quite intense, actually. I remember having moments of my life that I thought, if this continued like this, life for me wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense to keep living a life under these circumstances, with this physical health and mental health. It's not fun, it's not rich, it's not a rich and fulfilling experience of life at all. And that's a scary place to be. It's a very dark space to be, and a place to be that many people are experiencing in this moment, And I'm living in this very close, because not long ago a very good friend passed away who have this dealing with a strong depression for years. And it's very, very difficult place to be, and in my case, I felt like I was pushing and trying so bad to try to change and shift the situation, and one of the decisions that I took, being all my life in Chile, I decided to take a working holiday visa to Australia. I went to Australia, and in order to have new air, to breathe and to change a little bit my environment, to nourish my environment in a different way. And at the time I was coming back, to spiritual wisdom. I started reading. Actually, there's a few books on Deepak Chopra. I'm not reading Deepak Chopra anymore right now too much, but in that time they were so helpful, so tremendously helpful. And then I went to Australia, and it was worst. In Australia, I felt I couldn't fit with the culture. My English sucks by that moment, horrible. I couldn't even have conversations. I was not getting jobs as I was being promises by the agency. I was running out of money. I was in an absolutely horrible debt. The cost of life in Sydney, you may imagine, is really high, especially if you compare with other countries in South America. And I was pushing. And at some point I was somehow giving up, It's like, I don't feel like if I'm going to push anymore. I was trying different diets, also different things. And it was a moment that I didn't have money for example, just to eat. I remember making a line on the Red Cross that every day they give food in the street for people who are in risk of being homeless, And I saw myself there one day, and I was like, wow, I'm making this line with all these like people who lives in the street. I was about to be homeless, so it's like homeless people and people with the risk of being homeless, and because I didn't have money more to pay their rent. And I didn't want to talk with my parents about this, because for me, that would be like, okay, I will send out to Australia to somehow an initiation of like how they call it, a rite of passage.
Rite of passage.
And I wanted to come back stronger, like the hero, come back to the community, with a gift, with an offering. If I come back now, I wouldn't come back that, so I wouldn't even talk to my parents about this. No money, horrible health, very, very skinny. I was like super skinny. And at some point I stopped. The few things there's two important things that happen here. One of them, I stopped pushing and trying too much to try to logically change, and logically I'm gonna just let this be and happen. Something that one of my spiritual teachers says, first of all, the first very step in the healing path is to accept, radically accept what's present with you. Nothing has been transformed, nothing has been changed from a space of resistance. Resistance creates conflict. There's no war, there's no issues between countries in the history of humankind that have been they're completely friends after a war. It's like full acceptance. So that was a process on me that was like, I stopped pushing, I stopped the inner conflict. With the inner conflict, it's very difficult to move out from there. If you are in that space, it's important to stop resisting. Equal surrendering, that's stop resisting, surrendering and accepting. And the second thing that happened to me is some part of the hero's journey as well, which when you receive this kind of unexpected supernatural aid, supernatural help. And my supernatural help in that moment were two books that I'm so happy to share. My favorite books, because in that moment were so relevant. One was, interestingly enough, people may think it's like some Vedic scripture. No, it was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I didn't follow the process much to become rich. It was just to change my life. And I follow the process, something I call people, if they read books, don't read just for entertainment. Read one book, read it 3 times and apply it for 6 months instead of trying to consume 100 books a month. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. And I rigorously applied every day for months, the whole process, and things I noticed start changing. So I start pushing. I got this book, and the second book that I got is some supernatural aid from the universe. It was Robin Sharma, the monk who sold his Ferrari.
That's sitting on my windowsill right now. I haven't read it yet.
Amazing. That's a call then for you to do it.
Yeah, it is.
And this is an interesting book because it's about somebody who live in that environment of the Western world and doing, and potentially that's your Dharma, and some kind of forced Dharma from family and society. And then he ended up, taking a trip to the Himalayas, and things start changing from there. This literally makes me book tickets to the Himalayas. To Rishikesh first, and then I went to Nepal, and I was a few months living in Nepal in little villages, Buddhist village in Nepal. Inspired by what's happened in this book, So my process, as you ask specifically, it was like after being in this deep kind of darkness, I stopped pushing. And when you stop pushing, you relax. And when you relax, you open your intuition and you create a space to receive. You cannot receive if you're not relaxed. And you cannot relax if you are in an inner conflict inside of your head. Should I do this? Should I do not? Should I change? What else I can do? No pain, no gain to reach my goals. No, dude, stop. Stop, lay back. And don't do nothing, maybe for a day, maybe for a couple of weeks. And you will notice how magically, if you don't believe in magic, this is what magic is. Magic, the underlying intelligence of the universe will provide what you need to provide. But the anthem is up. I'm ready to receive. I'm receiving mode just by being relaxed. And this is how this magical conversation happened. Magical podcast. Oh my God, this is like, wow, so insightful. Magical books, magical courses, magical, little experiences, magical downloads happen that I was like, okay, this is a dharmic call. Now I'm ready. And out of fears, I need a lot of courage to took that trip to India. I was scared to go to a country like this. What if I get sick? What if I get worse? So much anxiety still. And that was the courage that I needed, And they say the universe really always gift to courageous people, who take bold acts that are aligned. And that was my process, and this is what also I encourage people to do from that space. If you're in a confusing space, in a frustrated space, in a lost space, stop trying, number one, and radically accept the current circumstances. Number two, be open to the omens. For people who read the Alchemist of Paulo Coelho, it's all about the omens. It's all about
books.
Amazing. It's all about these messages. He was perceiving, boom, little message from the universe, and he was taking that, little detour maybe for what he planned. I'm going to take this little detour, and the detour take you from this incredible dimensions of magic and beautiful connections and awakenings.
That's beautiful. It's an amazing story. The idea of, I can't remember exactly how you said it, but going forward with courage, and going forward with courage from a place of, you said, radical acceptance of the current state. You're pushing, and you're digging deeper and deeper and deeper, and things are getting more and more chaotic, and getting to a place where you kind of just throw your hands up and radically accept the circumstances. It sounds like be in the moment. And then when you start to get those magical intuitions, those magical teachers showing up in your life, when you get the inspiration when you hear the calling, when you get the inspiration from that calling to go forward courageously, which I think is often confused with going forward from a place of desperation, because the two can sound very similar. If you like the person, the grind, we're in a hustle culture, the grind culture, just grind. And, from my own experience, that really is not a very good way to do things. But what you're talking about, and unfortunately, most often, I shouldn't say unfortunately, because it's a beautiful thing once the whole process goes through with itself. But the downward spiral, the pushing, the feeling of like never being able to get out of this, to the point where you hit bottom and you just accept your circumstances and listen. And when you get that moment of inspiration, when you find that teacher, whether it's a book, a podcast, a piece of music that inspires thoughts, or someone like yourself who has circled that journey, now brings back the gifts that you've learned from your own experience to share with others, go forward with that inspiration courageously. I love that.
It's very interesting what you say, and it's important to have the discernment, if it is an action taken out of desperation. And if you ask me what would be how you can have the discernment. There is I went to, I lived for a few months in a traditional Tantra ashram in Goa a few years ago. And the class, the main class, it's called a 3-dosha sequence, to balance your doshas, your Ayurvedic doshas, your energetic constitution. Is based on a tantric practice on this lineage. There was a 3 hours practice, a 3 hours asana class, the complete form. Wow. And most of the time, and especially most of the first hours, is about relax, 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 relax. Nothing can happen if you're relaxed. They set up a whole space and they guide to specific words to relax the body. Then you go to the asana. Then you relax. Relax, relax, relax. We spend a lot of time in a process of relaxation. How this applies to the life in terms of decision taking and so on is it's how you have the discernment. If you haven't stopped pushing and radically accepting this whole thing, whatever you're gonna do out of an emotional reaction, there's a high chance it's gonna be problematic. Mm-hmm. That's the discernment. Then if you don't act, if you don't take any decision in that moment, as Nemo says in the movie, one of my favorite movies, Mr. Nobody, as long as you don't choose, everything remains possible. I love that. Mm-hmm. So you don't choose. You lay back and you stop. And you radically accept what the present circumstances and you nourish an environment of relaxation. That's where your focus is supposed to be. That's the call for me, and this is what works for me and what I teach to others as well. And when you nourish that, when you feel the call, when you get that, then you take the courageous, potentially bold, courageous, crazy, whatever action that you need to take. This is what the protagonist of The Alchemist did. This is what I did. This is what most of the people who have been creating an amazing thing for the world have been coming from a space of, okay, I'm going to chill, and then I'm going to receive that call, which is either you can call it God talking to you, your higher self, you can call it your own intuition, you can call yourself your Dharma, whatever you can call it. The thing is, that's a different. An emotional reaction is tricky, Another interesting story, this morning, I have a little conflict with my lover. And I was outside in the deck, and she came to me. This happened like just recently, an hour ago or something. And she came to me, and it was like peace, a little bit angry and charged. And she told me, she was like, express what she feel. And that touched me, and I start feeling and noticing myself charged, And I knew what I want to say to discuss and to fight back.
Yeah.
But I got aware of it. I'm aware that I'm being charged. I'm aware of what I'm about to say is probably coming from an emotional reaction. Mm-hmm. So as soon as you're aware, and this is what meditation gives you, that gap. When you meditate, we observe the gap between thought. This is exactly the same gap you need before reacting. This is why I meditate. Yeah. I meditate just for that reason, to have better relationships and better way of expressing, which is ultimately enlightenment, living with cosmic relationships. We want that, with a relationship with yourself, with others, with Mother Nature, with reality itself, we want to cultivate the relationships, and for that we need to meditate to cultivate that spaces. So I stopped. I choose, that liberation, that's freedom, true freedom. I choose to shut the fuck up. Otherwise it's going to be problematic. And I let her talk, and she was like, blah, blah, blah. I want to interrupt. I didn't. Blah, blah, blah. It finished. I still feel charged. And alchemize the feeling through the breath, one of the most powerful tools. Yeah. Deep breath. I notice a change just with one deep breath. And I answer, I hear you. Thank you for sharing. So laying back, stop pushing, stop the conflict. And then after that, I way less charged. And then I asked myself, what is relevant and present for me right now? And I took the time. And if I need to take like 10 minutes, I will take that 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then I express what is present for me and what is relevant, what I think. That's how we de-escalate a potential fight, potentially, and even in the middle of a fight, Mm-hmm. So I think that's tremendously important, It's like the discernment that we were discussing. And what you say about taking this action that out of desperation, as you mentioned, okay, stop. You don't need to choose. You don't need to choose to be a Democrat right now. You don't need to choose if you need to get vaccinated right now. You just observe for a moment, breathe, and just stay there for a little bit. And then even if you wait for 30 seconds, Taylor, and you take one deep breath, it makes a whole difference. This is medicine. This is the medicine that we need individually. This is the medicine that is needed in the collective, that space.
I couldn't agree more. It's so funny. Just so a conversation just before ours was I was actually being interviewed myself, and I talked about how meditation helped me cure I had an eating disorder, binge eating, for 5 years, and it was the exact same thing that you just mentioned, was this gap between my emotions and my response. And that's all I needed. Just this little wedge of time between how I was feeling emotionally and how I responded in the physical environment. And as soon as I had practiced meditation enough to just wedge that little gap in between those two things, I could make a different choice. And it's so that, when we think about, this occurrence in your relationship, this occurrence in my relationship with food, it's universally applicable. And as you said, it's the medicine that collectively I think we need so desperately. Just 100 kilometers from where I am right now, I live on Vancouver Island, and we have a few patches of old growth forest. There's only 1 to 2% of the forest left in British Columbia. That's where I live, is old growth, right? Ancient rainforest. And it's been decided to be logged. So they're currently logging it right now. And, for you in that moment of inner reflection between your emotional charge, your emotional response with your partner, and your decision on how you were going to respond. For me, with my food, or the emotions that I experienced, and my decision of how I was going to respond. We can extrapolate that and look at from a societal level. Okay, well, yeah, we have these economic needs. We have to keep an industry afloat, or we think we need to keep an industry afloat. We think we need to have these certain practices in order to keep society progressing in the way that we want to. But what if we took just a moment of time between our initial idea, our initial concept, and how we execute on that? Because I would be willing to bet that most people would choose a different outcome than cutting down a forest that's been there for 2,500 years. And that's all around the world. There's decisions being made right now that have no gap in time between. It's a runaway of a momentum. It's decisions made after decisions with none of these gaps of time to really understand what are the ramifications and how would I prefer to respond given what I care about most.
Absolutely. I feel like sometimes when we see exactly this realization on the societal level and in the more collective level, can be very frustrating because you say, okay, I'm doing these things, or I know what I need to do, but why? But the leaders, the CEOs, the politicians, and whatever is taking these decisions that have a strongest impact to our environment and our well-being as humanity, and the other day a friend posted in social media, like, as a requirement to be a politician, everyone should have like a mushroom trip or like an ayahuasca trip.
I agree.
It's like 100%. And that's the point, But at the same time, I notice very empowering the fact that we can start doing this for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And this, in most of the time, probably in all the times, would be enough. Would be enough because we have a direct impact in our environment with the way that show up and we live. My students sometimes asking me how I can introduce. I'm trying to force my boyfriend to do yoga. How I can convince him to do yoga? No. You show up happy in your life.
Yeah.
You show up happy. He will say no. It's like a seller knock your door and say, hey, you want to buy this? No, whatever you're selling, I might like it, but actually I will not buy it, But if you stand up here in the road and you're using whatever you want to sell me and you are happy and whatever, I'm going to like, what are you doing? Your boyfriend will come to you and will say like, what is that yoga thing you do? I see you fit, I see you healthy, I see you open, expansive, I see you clear, I see you thriving, I want to try, and this is how I start practicing yoga as well, and this is how we start creating change, in our own environment. Then it's the next generations, we're dealing with like collective trauma that we are carrying, from our ancestors. And I can perceive myself in a very wounded masculine aspect, and I can see it myself manifested in my relationships. And I notice it's like, holy fuck, From one side, I am disempowered because I am carrying stuff that guys has been doing for the last couple of thousands of years in the history of humankind. But at the same time, I feel empowered because, I have the power to change that and that trauma that is coming generations and generations, and that wounded aspect of my consciousness, some people call it wounded masculine or whatever, but wounded aspect of me that makes me act in a certain way out of a desperation or out of an emotional reaction that can potentially hurt others. I feel empowered because I have the power to change it. If I do change it myself, my son, my daughters, and the next generations, my nephews will be different. And my nephews will be the ones who are going to be the next CEOs potentially and presidents of countries, So we are having an impact. We are creating an impact by radically changing ourselves in a good way, exploring, expanding our perception of reality, expanding our consciousness, tapping into our full potential, tapping into all multidimensionality and all the possibilities of connection and love we have.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's, Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in the world, right? So on that concept of change and helping people, come into the best versions of themselves, which is something that you do, who is when you think about your Dharma, what you're doing with your life right now, the gifts that you're bringing to the world, the people that you work with, who are the people that you love working with? What are the things that you love doing most in this world with people to help them empower themselves and transform? I don't really... I'm not really consciously much choosing. Maybe unconsciously I'm choosing with who I want to work. There is a lot of things that I realize that I cannot control. A good answer for that question is, business-wise, for example, the virtual school that I have. The other day, I met this business mentor because I'm running stuff online. I want them to grow. Same like when Andy Parikam created the Headspace app, at the beginning it was a little app, just non-profit, and say, no, if you make a business with this, it's going to grow, and now it's transforming millions of people's lives around the world, because keep growing that way. He's using marketing in his favor to seduce people into healing somehow. So, and I love that concept. Anyway, so this person asked me, who is your niche? Who is your audience? What are their pains and what are their dreams of working with you and joining your programs? And I was like, I maybe I know, but I'm not very sure about it. Well, you should be clear about that. And I was like, why people join? And then I do reverse engineer and see and analyze people who have been joining my programs, And then I see some patterns. Definitely I see some patterns. Not because I choose them, it's just because, okay, there is some resonance of my teachings and my story on their story, and that's why I connect with them. But yeah, answering your question, if I reverse engineer, I look back for who are the people who have been working mainly one-to-one and in my programs, normally are like spiritual seekers, I could say, quite young in a sense of like they very fast they realize that maybe what they study in uni or what they were forced to study, very quickly realized there was something wrong with it. There's like a strong waking up process, and as they're just living this, they need somehow a lead
a leader or a mentor, or more than a mentor, as a particular form, as a particular human, a structure, where to start and what is the process to follow. And this is what I love doing it, translating and masticating things and chewing things and then put them into a system, into a proper order. And yeah, this is what's happened. And most of them are also yoga teachers, health coaches, and therapists, and even people who are working in the industry in marketing things, but related with like supporting people into their path of taking the best out of this life, or bringing out the best version of themselves, So I notice a little army that have been forming and growing progressively of I don't know, people may call it light beings, of soldiers and warriors of truth and love, but it's important to gather together, to maximize that impact. And I feel that the programs that I've been running, either the teacher trainings or the Modern Mystic School, of the Tantra immersions and all of that, or the retreats, create a space that this kind of lonely soldiers who have been starting figuring out some things, because I'm here not to convince nobody about truth, about reality, about the way of living, or what have been working for me. At least I'm just putting things, and whatever resonates. It's some kind of the Batman light, I am there with the Batman light in the clouds, and then these lonely soldiers of love. I just making a cartoon of this whole thing, but lonely soldiers of love is like, okay, I figured already something out, but I would like to be part of something bigger. So my impact and my own process of awakening can be like maximized. And I think this is what is happening, and I feel, what is beautiful, Taylor, is that these people who did, let's say, the yoga teacher training with me or so on, then go out and they create what I'm creating. And it's somehow a powerful network, and they're attracting people by their own. And this is the same thing, my teacher in Rishikesh, one of my main teachers, the philosophy teacher, this guy told me, what I'm teaching you is not from me, it's coming from my teachers. And I'm part of his kind of network of teachers, the same as the healer master that I had in Peru. This guy is like, now you're part of this network of people, sharing a new way of living and new possibilities for this waking up of this new era. And I'm connected with a powerful, net, and you're connected. And now me and Taylor, we're connected, we're I see you here next to me in this screen, and then you're putting this content over there. And it's so beautiful how and the network is solid, it's powerful. And it's keep giving feedback and nourishing itself, with all this work we're doing, So it's important to know that we're not alone on this, and we are here to support each other, to listen to each other, and to constantly create a space to go deeper into ourselves with Sangha, what the Buddhists call it, community, and groups that can make this impact stronger.
Yeah. I love that. The idea of bringing people together who, we're all on our own journey. We're all seeking to become the best versions of ourselves. And once we get to a certain point, or once we realize that we have something to offer, not even to a certain point, just once we realize, hey, you know what? I've learned lessons. I've learned lessons from other people, and I've learned more about myself. And I have something now that I can share with other people to share that with other people, because as you mentioned, you become part of that web, you become part of that net. And what you have to offer resonates with people that your teachers might not have ever reached or resonated with. So you're spreading, that higher consciousness, that ability for people to lift themselves up to their greatest selves. So people who want to do that, people who, like you said, they've got to a point where they realize that the current path that they're on is not serving them. Maybe they're living someone else's dreams, or they're trying to fulfill someone else's goals, whether it's their parents or society. And they're realizing, hey, you know what? There's something out there for me. I don't know where it is or how to get there, but I know it's time to make a different choice. How do they reach out to you, where can they find you, and how can you begin to help them in that process?
Thank you for asking. There is in social media, I am trying to use social media in the best way. I know it can be tricky. I hear it from you from the beginning regarding Instagram and everything. It can be really tricky sometimes. Mm-hmm. Actually, I end up, I don't know how, in a discussion in a Facebook group a couple of days ago about what does it mean, the masculine and the feminine, and people were like, no, this is like completely, you cannot teach like polarity teachings. That's like against like the new paradigm of wow. And people getting very pissed off about it, and I'm thinking like, but that works, and I wanna mention this, Taylor, because what we do as facilitators, as teachers, as coaches, what we do is basically share from our own experience. There's no here an ultimate truth that I got the truth and I'm sharing. But hey, if something specific that I read, let's say from David Deida, regarding masculine and feminine dynamic, it transformed my life. I am here out of teaching because it's my truth. Is the ultimate truth? I don't know, but it's my truth and works for me. And I invite other people to try it. And that's all. I'm not convincing anybody. And whoever needs to listen to this will listen. And I'm trusting that my audience is coming in an organic, effortless way because somebody shares something, or they end up putting a hashtag, or they met me in a cafe, whatever it is, because they are meant to hear something, or I'm meant to hear something from them as well. This is like all connected. And what I'm teaching is not, and what I invite all the teachers also, what I tell my students, like, you don't teach from dogma, that's old school, that's, you sit down with the priest or with the master and tell you, this is the 10th thing that you need to follow, otherwise you go to hell, or things like this. This is old school, my friends. You do them, you try them. If you hear somebody sharing something, you don't accept, you don't reject, but you contemplate. Mm-hmm. And contemplate meaning you try in the laboratory of yourself. If it works for you, then it becomes your personal truth, and you share it and you become a teacher. Simple as that. In a non-dogmatic way. So, I'm constantly sharing content regarding your question, in areas SB, in the Instagram or on Facebook. I have a group on Facebook, it's called Modern Mystics, as well, for joining. Another group of a community of yoga teachers called Yoga Teachers Community, also to bring the knowledge of yoga in the best way for other people. Very soon I'm going to run a video series on the foundations of Tantra. People who know a little bit about Tantra, but they want to know, like, what are the main principles and how I can apply it to my relationships and my life. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be absolutely free. It's going to be like a week live course.
Oh, wow.
So I invite people to join that, because this can be...
I'll just from a perspective of someone who fits that exact description. I've heard about it. I know a little bit about it, but I want to learn more, especially about how it's applicable in life. So I'll 100% check that.
Amazing. Please join. An invitation to anyone who is listening to join the course, because that course itself can bring you a lot. It's going to be with workbooks and with a couple of live sessions. So definitely join. And also, it's good you asked me this question, because not long ago I opened a membership that's called the Modern Mystic School, and this is exactly for people who are like, well, at some point I found myself that if I'm not running a course, I have nothing to offer, Mm-hmm. So I opened the membership because people can join anytime. And go deep into a specific spiritual concept that is based on the Purusharthas, which is Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, which is basically purpose, relationships, abundance, freedom. Is like the more tantric way of living, the way of living of the modern mystics. And this is going to be constantly. Now it's closed, but in a couple of months, probably it's going to open again, because we're working in the core content, and it's going to be an ever-going offering, for people who want to start this journey, as you asked me, and they don't know where to start. This is going to be the best place to start, I would say. It's coming very close, a recommendation. But it's going to, because we start with Dharma. We start with, like, okay, what is Dharma, and how to tap into your dharmic power, how you ignite that dharmic fire, how to live with meaning and purpose as a foundational. And then how to build conscious relationships, and how to build a life that financially in this economical worldly realm can build abundance, so we have stable and enough also to work in our process of freedom and liberation, which is moksha. So it's opening in a couple of months. Now we're working with the founding members, but it's going to be open again. So yeah, I'm sharing everything through the Instagram and in my email list. So feel free to join. I will keep you updated with all of that.
I'll definitely put that in, I'll put all of that in the show notes for that course specifically. It's going to start in a few months. Is there a place people can maybe register for a waiting list, or should they get on your email list? What's the easiest way for them to, they're like, hey, I'm ready to join this course. If it was live today, I would, but it's going to be in a few months. So how can I be the first to know, when it's ready to go?
Thank you for asking. About the Modern Mystic School, that's going to open in a few months. modernmysticschool.com. There is a waiting list. You just put your email and your name, and I'm going to keep you updated. Super easy. And for the Tantra course, it's going to be free, and it's going to start in literally 3 weeks from now. The website I can share with you is heartoftantra.com/free course. Also, the link is in my bio. And then I'm going to keep you updated and send you all the links and the videos to your email, and also the link to join the group that we're going to do some live sessions, the group of the Modern Mystic. So everything is there. Yeah, that's our two offerings.
I love it. Well, I appreciate everything that you are putting out there, and I'll definitely be on that list because, like I say, I pretty well fit that demographic. So a question I love to ask people like yourself who do share a lot about what you do and your Dharma, right? How you're giving back to the world. This can often be, as you mentioned, you were speaking about some of David Deda's concepts in a group, and there was a little bit of pushback from some people. By the way, if David Deda, if nobody ever has read the way of the way of superior man. I forgot the name of the book all of a sudden. I'm one of those people where that book was just a paradigm shift for me. I started to understand the fundamental concepts of how we interact with each other much better. But you share a lot of these ideas, a lot of these concepts, and people start to have an interpretation of you, right? But there's certain things that they'll just never fully grasp. How are you often misunderstood, and what do you wish more people knew about you or the work that you do or what you like to share with the world around you?
In terms of the misunderstanding, I don't really care much, to be honest. The audience will decide, and there's like a very committed student that I have that is joining literally all my programs and recommending them, and more people coming out of them. And if people doesn't resonate with my content, I honor that, and thank you so much. And maybe you resonate more with Taylor content or, with somebody, another teacher content. And that's beautiful, It's like, I wouldn't be able to handle as in the role of a teacher, because I'm also a lot in the role of the students, a whole bunch of things. The thing with the content, I think, Taylor, is important to understand that people say okay, this masculine and feminine dynamic, is that true? I don't think it's that true. I don't care if that's true or not. If it is useful and it's practical and it's helping. Have you created the space for you to try this in your life for a few months and see if it's working positively? If it does, then it becomes your own truth, and then you keep it. And there's nothing else to discuss. There's no debate you should go and defend. I'm not here defending the teachings of David Deda, of the teachings of any of my teachers, of my own teachings. I share what works for me. If you resonate, oh, hell yeah. Or if you're curious about it, more than welcome. It's going to maybe blow your mind. Maybe not. But I regarding specific your question, I don't wish specifically anything, and this is what I tell my students who also are coaches and teachers and facilitators. You teach from a space of experience, you teach a space of your own story, and you teach from a space of what tools and philosophies have been working for you, and then you become a badass teacher because you're teaching from a space of full integrity and full empowerment, and from that inspiration comes out of it, and you inspire other people, and maybe from the 10 teachings that I teach, one of them inspires so much somebody, and this person grab these teachings and expand these other 10 teachings that I don't do, and it's like a net of beautiful, powerful, transformational teachings that can be helpful and useful, you know. What is the what is the best martial arts? What is the best spiritual path? It's like all crap, you know. It works for you, how it makes you feel, you know, makes you feel expanded, makes you feel you think is useful, makes you feel aligned, you know, well, then keep it up, because we want you happy and we want you inspired. I want you inspired, either it's with my teachings or not, because therefore you're contributing with a high vibration system and being in this planet, you know, in this whole system, you know, you are one vibrating cell in the whole system of society and the planet Earth and the whole universe, you know. So this is my call, you know. My call is as for all the teachers, and this is a call for me as well, is like you share from a space of authenticity, and people will choose, people will decide, you know. Same as how economics and the markets work, you know. If your product is good, people will buy it. If not, you know, you don't go in there and cry because, nobody understand my product. That's victimization. You're saying like you blaming them because not being aware enough to understand your content. Sometimes I'm coaching other teachers and they say like, they don't get me. No, they're not. You take responsibility. Take responsibility. Maybe you're reaching out the wrong audience. Maybe you need to change something in your language. Maybe you need to explore different avenues, but take responsibility, because they always will decide ultimately, you know, and you will attract also the right students and the right clients for you. They will come naturally and organically because they will resonate with you. There's no much things you need to blame others, you know, so authentic teachings always. Yeah.
I love that. The thing that, comes up for me when you share that, and the thing that I take away from you is, if you've ever heard of I don't know what it's called actually now thinking about it, but it's like the journey of the master, and you start out as the initiate and you know nothing, and then you learn that there's things that but you don't know that you know nothing, and then you learn that there's things that you don't know, and then you learn those things, and then you get to mastery. And true mastery is knowing the things that you know, but knowing that there's infinitely more that you don't know, and returning with a curious mind, returning with all of the quote unquote truths that you now have in your tool belt, but returning full circle to being open to new concepts, open with a curious mind. And I feel that you embody that very well. You have a wealth of, you know, even starting from a young age, learning all these amazing concepts and teachings from your father, all the way to where you are now, but still approaching life from a very open, a very curious viewpoint. I think is so valuable and unique in today's world.
Thank you for bringing that up. That the Buddhists use that concept of beginner's mind is so important for everyone, especially for teachers, you know, and for facilitators. It's tremendously important. I love that, because me, as also somebody who have been practicing martial arts, I'm not a black belt, but most of the people in my family, my dad, my brother, they are black belts in different martial arts. You know, that's interesting about black belts is like you start with the white belt, right? And the black belt, then my dad, I remember when I was a kid, he was like graduating. And I said, why? But you are already a black belt. No, it's the first dan. And they put a little line, I don't know if you have seen it, a white line on the almost at the end of the belt. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then again, another white. My dad is like now a third or fourth dan on his practice. And then you keep using the belt until it's white again.
I love
that. The belt become white, and that's the hero's journey, and that's what you're saying about returning to the beginner's mind and always be a learner. So each one of the white lines plus the belts becoming like old and old and old. If you see some of the very old black belts, is almost white. It's coming from the beginning at the end, and that's true mastery. You know, it's true mastery. The ultimate black belt, paradoxically, is white. Because you are approaching everything with curiosity and with beginner's mind. You know, you come back to treat another white belt as equal. You having learning the whole Vedic tantric yogic scriptures, you come back and sit down and drink a tea with your grandma that has no idea about that, but she has something to share about her religion, and you listen openly, you know, and that's, for me, that's ultimate mastery, and something that is tremendously important for us as coaches, facilitators, teachers to embody every single time.
Definitely. I've never heard that about the black belt and the dance, but that is one of the most beautiful ways I've ever heard the beginner's mind put. So I appreciate you for that. I appreciate you, Sebastian. It was an absolute pleasure speaking with you and learning more about you outside of the little that I knew from Instagram, right? Like I've learned a lot from your posts, but to speak with you in this format and learn about your history and what you're doing in the world is really inspiring and powerful. So I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for what you are doing as well, to spreading all of these wisdom and connection with inspiring people, inspiring teachers. Your own teachings, is super important and relevant to step out in that power, to live your dharmas. I think also you're doing, and yeah, thank you for what you're doing and inviting me.
Thank you again for checking out this episode of the Power Plant Body podcast. If you enjoyed it, I'd be grateful if you left it a rating and review on iTunes. When you leave it a rating and review, it really helps because it lets iTunes know, and they'll be more likely to promote it to others who could also benefit from hearing these conversations. And feel free to share this episode with people who could also benefit from Sebastian's insights into personal development, tantra, and spirituality. And make sure that you go say hi to Sebastian by checking him out on Instagram. His handle is @Aries_SV. That's @ARIES_SV. As Sebastian mentioned, he leads groups of men and women who want to build an authentic, intimate, and expanded relationship with themselves, with others, and with life. So at the time of this recording, he's just about to start a new 3-month online group coaching program. So make sure that you check it out. You can register by going to heartoftantra.com. That's HEARTOFTANTRA.com. I've also added that link and all the other links in the show notes page for this episode. That is powerplantbody.com/Sebastian-Valensi. Valensi spelled VALENSI. Don't forget to head over to powerplantbody.com/free-tools to get your hands on a free copy of the Goal Wheel PDF, along with tons of other free tools. I'm regularly adding new resources to that page to help you create the best version of yourself, so you'll definitely want to bookmark it. You can find me on Instagram @TheVeganTrainer, and feel free to send me a DM if you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes. Thanks again for spending some time with Sebastian and I will see you in the next episode.